Paper Flowers. Chapter 11. Adjusting. Dad is humming as he looks through the produce section. His kids are standing next to him, looking bored. All of a sudden, the girl nudges her brother and points. The camera pans and focuses on teacher character inspecting the jam sections. Voiceover says, "Well, teacher, spotted!" Flashback to the two shocked kids. Dad looks to his kids and then up to see what they are looking at and gasps in excitement. "Oh my gosh!" Pan to the teacher, who looks up and waves. "Hi, buddy!" Dad exclaims as he rushes over, leaving two astonished kids behind. Virgil entered the kitchen to grab some breakfast. Roman had kept him up late last night with a story, and now he and everyone else was already at the breakfast table. He'd considered skipping breakfast altogether, but he was hungry, so he decided to stack it up and try joining the others again. He managed before. It didn't have to be that different now, right? "Morning, Marilyn Monroe," Roman greeted carelessly. "Morning, Charmless," Virgil muttered. Roman rolled his eyes, knowing that Virgil was going to be in a mood until he'd had his tea. Virgil couldn't handle coffee, and so Janice had taught him to appreciate tea, and now it was so ingrained in his morning routine that his brain refused to wake up before he'd had a cup. "Hi, kiddo," Patton waved nervously. "Anxiety?" Logan nodded in acknowledgement. "Hi, Specs." And, because he knew by the look on Roman's face that he was waiting for someone to bring it up. "So, your little collab is doing well," he muttered as he carefully tested to see if the kettle was still hot. It wasn't. "It was indeed. It was simple, but perfect," Roman declared proudly as Virgil heated the water. "It was adequate. I'm just relieved you did not insist on having my character do anything overly zany," Logan replied. "I thought it was lots of fun," Patton piped up. "It was fine. I wouldn't call it perfect, though," Virgil muttered as he put his breakfast together. He checked on the water. Nearly done. "Excuse you," Roman objected. A glance back told Virgil that he had his arms folded in front of him, an eyebrow raised expectantly. Virgil turned his attention back to making his tea, partially to hide his smirk. They were friends now, but it was still his job to reel Prinxiety in, and it was still funny to bicker with the dramatic idiot of his side. "I mean, it was a little basic. The fans probably only got excited because everyone likes a crossover, and this means there will be more to come. The Dad and Nemesis wasn't a one-off. We've done better. Teach and Dad didn't even really interact. We won't always get away with minimum effort." Virgil bit his lip as a mild reality check turned into genuine worry. The next video had to be good. What if the vendors thought Thomas was phoning it in? Would they even follow them to YouTube? What if they thought Thomas wasn't capable of making quality content beyond a 6-second skit? What if they couldn't do it? "Well, I was trying to spare Lord of the Nerds a little, but don't worry, the next video will blow everyone away," Roman declared confidently, snapping Virgil out of his spiral. With the deep breath he disguised as a mildly annoyed sigh, he poured the now hot water into his cup and hopped on the counter to eat his breakfast. "I'll believe it when I see it," he mumbled, trying to subtly make himself smaller by pulling one knee to his chest. He could see Patton contemplate scolding him, but apparently he was still convinced Virgil was a ticking time bomb. And maybe he was. It was always just a matter of time before he snapped, before he'd meet Thomas miserable, before he hurt one of them. Ahem! Virgil's head snapped up. Roman was standing in front of him, his gaze concerned, yet reassuring. "If you are quite done contemplating my demise," he said in a tone that didn't match his face, "I'd like an apple." Virgil was confused for a moment, but then remembered taking a banana from the fruit bowl, the one he was sitting right in front of. Of course he had to sit in the worst possible spot. And for what? Because he wanted to create some distance? Because he liked finding different places he could but shouldn't sit on? A light pressure on his hand snapped him out once again. Roman had leaned past him to take an apple and had subtly laid his hand over Virgil's, giving it a small squeeze. Virgil centered himself once more, though he was fairly sure Roman was just delaying the inevitable. Still, he appreciated not having a breakdown in front of the others. Roman pulled back and took a bite of his apple. Not that I can blame you. I too like to feel like a snack, he teased lightly. Virgil wanted to laugh, but he was in no state to make jokes. Roman let out a theatrical sigh. If you are going to be gloomy, you might as well go to your room. No need to bring the rest of us down with you, he huffed, as if personally offended that Virgil didn't respond to his joke. Fine, Virgil snapped, already out of breath as he jumped off the counter, grateful for the excuse to leave, and took his food with him. Not that he was likely to eat it any time soon, but he might be hungry later. His tea would likely cool off, but he deserved cold tea. He slammed the door closed and almost immediately dropped to the floor, thoughts reeling. He had to keep them under control. If Thomas was too bothered by him, Roman would know, and then he'd know that despite all the work they'd done, Virgil was still a problem, and he wouldn't want to be friends anymore, and... Roman, was that necessary? Patton asked disappointedly. Roman tried to hide the way that face and tone made him cringe. No one liked having Patton cross with you. But it had been the best Roman could do for Virgil on such short notice. The honest answer to Patton's question was yes, but he couldn't say that. What? He doesn't like being here, so I don't see why he should stick around if he'd clearly rather be anywhere else, he argued. Roman! Patton gasped. Patton, if I may, I believe Roman meant here at the breakfast table, while in company. Especially so shortly after a very stressful period, and with a big change approaching on top of that. It is probably best for anxiety to process in a way that makes him more comfortable. Past experience suggests that he would prefer solitude. Roman tensed a little. Logan was wrong. Virgil had sought solitude in the past because he didn't want to be weak in front of them. Roman had learned that he actually shouldn't be left alone at times like this. He got into his own head, and with no one there to diffuse his thoughts, he'd spiral. But he did need to be away from Patton and Logan. It was up to Roman to make sure the other side was actually fine. Indeed, we've been through plenty of his moods by now to know that there is no talking to him. I'm sure the seat will check upon him or something if he were to need someone around right now, Roman reasoned dismissively, as he took out his key and opened his door. I'll see you both upon my return, he declared as he entered the field. He saw Virgil hadn't sought refuge here, and hurried to the other door. He laid his ear to the door. He could hear irregular breathing. That wasn't good. This sort of thing had of course happened a few times since they became friends. Virgil was anxiety. Sometimes he could not help his nature. But as Logan pointed out, with the tour just wrapped up and the move on to YouTube inevitably drawing closer, Virgil was under a lot of legitimate stress. The few times something akin to this had happened, Roman had never really been able to do much more than reassure Virgil after he got out of one of his spirals. And this would be the first time he'd reach Virgil in the middle of one, especially one with such intense build-up behind it. He knocked on the door in a steady pattern, hoping it would somehow bring comfort. After a while, he felt the door move a little. He opened it up swiftly and found that the door had actually opened up on the floor. It was a very odd sensation, looking forward and up at the same time. He could see Virgil's ceiling ahead, and next to the door, he could see Virgil, curled up, trembling. He wasted no time and climbed out of the doorway. It was awkward and disorienting, but that didn't matter. Once he found himself in Virgil's room, he sat in front of Virgil Indian style. He didn't dare touch him, Back in the kitchen he'd risked it, because Virgil hadn't seemed quite lost in his thoughts yet. But now he wondered how Virgil was even present of mind enough to open the door. He'd have to check on Thomas later. Roman bit his lip. He couldn't stay here too long. He had to convince Virgil to come to the meadow with him. He leaned into the field and closed Virgil's door. Then he opened a new one with his own key right next to Virgil. "Hey, Virg," he asked carefully. He wished he'd paid more attention when Thomas looked up coping mechanisms. Virgil had told him about when things got this bad, and how helpful those things could be. He'd been too embarrassed to admit that he'd been zoning out at the time. Logan was the one who'd studied them. He had been trying to think of a way to casually bring them up again and get Logan to infidump about the whole subject. He usually found it annoying, mostly because he got very lost around 3 sentences in. Logan did not pace himself to fit his audience, and Roman had a hard time paying attention for long. But on this subject, he tried his best to sit quietly and take in as much information as he could, if he managed to get Logan to talk about it. Until Virgil was ready to let the others in, he was the only one who could help. He couldn't just call down the hall for Logan to guide Virgil through a breathing exercise. What was it again? In for 3 or... No, it was longer, right? He couldn't think right here. "Virgil, can you hear me?" he asked. A nearly imperceivable nod. Good. He was still somewhat reachable. "Virgil, can I touch you?" he asked. A moment of nothing, and then a nod. Roman put his hands on Virgil's shoulders. "I need you to move a little for me. Can you do that?" A shake of the head. "Okay, that's fine. Is it okay if I carry you, just for a second?" Roman was pretty sure that it wasn't good for Virgil to be held right now, but if he didn't get out of this room, they'd be stuck with 2 sides in a panic attack. It took forever, but Virgil nodded. Roman let out a sigh of relief. "Okay, here I go," he warned as he stood, gently scooped Virgil up, and stepped through the door, kicking it closed and putting Virgil down right away. "There, isn't that better?" he asked gently. A vague, high-pitched whine was his only answer. Right, what did Logan say? Something about senses. "Would you be so kind as to tell me something you can hear?" he asked. It wasn't exactly right, but it was the best he could do right now. "Mary had a little lamb," Virgil whispered after a while. "Exactly! Well done, Virgil!" Roman praised, relieved to hear Virgil talk. "How about something you can smell?" he tried. "Cotton candy? And also roses?" Roman chuckled. "A stylistic choice of mine today," he informed him. "Something you can feel?" he asked then, feeling like this was actually working. Virgil's hand lowered to the paper vegetation growing all around them. "The flowers," he muttered, as his hand caressed the delicately folded paper. "Indeed! And something you can taste?" Silence. "Banana," Virgil told him. Roman recalled Virgil had eaten a banana before taking off. "Okay, and something you can see?" At this question, Virgil finally lifted his face from his knees and opened his eyes. "You," he sighed. Roman let out a breath of relief, the last tension leaving his body. "Hi, V. Feeling better?" he asked. Virgil shrugged. "I'm not spiraling anymore, but I still feel..." Roman nodded when Virgil got stuck. "It's okay. You're going through a lot right now. Moving to a new platform, and on the whole situation with the seat." Roman really wished that snake had stayed out of it. Then again, Virgil was bound to find out. Maybe it was better if he had when he did. "I know that we can't not change, but..." Virgil tried, digging his hands in his hair. Roman can almost see the thoughts swirl behind his eyes. "Well, I have an idea that might help elevate your worries a little, if you are up for it," he suggested gently. Virgil perked up. "You aren't upset?" he asked, as if he only just registered Roman's tone. "Alas, stormy night. As I told you before, you can't get rid of me now. I am too stubborn to give up. Besides, bonds with friends are important to Thomas, so they are important to me, and that extends to my own friends as well as Thomas's. Virgil smiled, relaxing almost completely. Roman could almost hear Logan guide Thomas to the breathing exercise Roman had tried to remember earlier, which helped Virgil relax even more. Thomas had been stressed all morning, come to think of it. In fact, he hadn't slept well either. Roman was glad Thomas was calming himself before he and Virgil spiraled into an attack. But about that idea, what if you and I gave skits on YouTube a little test run? Virgil frowned for a moment, but then nodded slowly. All right, I'm listening. Roman grinned. Virgil might not agree with the idea in the end, but him listening to begin with was still exciting at times, especially when he was feeling high-strung. All right, he exclaimed as he pulled Virgil up for a little walk through the imagination. He did his best thinking while on the move, and this idea was still forming. Virgil sighed and wrapped his arms around himself. Moving and listening to Roman prattle on might help distract him a little, regardless of whether this idea of his was the big solution he was currently hyping it up to be. You are reloading Thomas's YouTube page every 2 minutes. Your friend, who moved to Florida after middle school, told you he'd be in Thomas's next YouTube video. Thomas doesn't usually do skits on his YouTube channel. It's always little monologues or goofing off with his friends. So you're very curious. Your friend didn't tell you anything else except to be ready around 12 a.m. local time. It is now 11:59 a.m. You reload again, and this time a new video appears. Sinisterly royal auditions. The thumbnail features Joan with a clipboard flanked by 2 Thomas-shaped silhouettes. Oh, this couldn't be. You click the video so fast you think you might have damaged the mouse. But that concern goes out the window when you see Joan stand in front of your friend's class on the school stage. Alright everyone, we are looking for 2 of you to play a part in the next Vine. Thomas couldn't be here, but he has sent in some reinforcements to help me decide, Joan said. At that, the doors to the theater open, and in walks Prince! Greetings, everyone! I am here to find the chosen one to play a glorious role. My associate is running late, of course, so we'll do this audition after mine, he explains grandly. Oh, could he mean Nemesis? More Nemesis content? Let's get started, shall we? Everyone, please call upon your inner prince or princess and show me what you got. What followed was a quick montage of your friend's class singing lines from Disney being dramatic and elegant. You have to pause after your friend's turn is shown. You are laughing so hard. The auditions are occasionally interrupted by a very excited and proud prince declaring everyone a good pick to an already exhausted Joan. Marvelous work, everyone. Sadly, I just got a call to adventure. I shall return soon. Prince disappeared and Nemesis almost immediately enters, as though it was a revolving door. Someone spent too much time timing this edit. And you truly appreciate it. Sup, tell me I missed Sir Prep and Flopper, he drawled. Oh yes, this was going to be good. Just by a second, Joan replied as Nemesis took a seat. Good, now let's get this over with. Let's see which of you can convince me you embody the darkness as I do, he drawls, as he lets himself fall into the chair next to Joan. Another montage. This time the kids quote MCR songs, Sulk and Scowl. Nemesis just sits there with his arms crossed and smirks on occasion. Was that all? Are we done? He groans at the end of the montage. Yep, that was everyone, Joan confirms. Finally! Nemesis exclaimed. I'm going to sit in the dark and contemplate the futility of dreaming, he declared as he left. Once he did, Joan turned to the class. We'll let you kids know when we made the decision. Until next time. And so it cut back to Thomas. Wow, that was a wild ride. We did pick 2 amazing young actors to portray the characters we need for a Vine. Coming to you very soon. I hope you liked spending a little more time with my characters. Until next time, take it easy guys, gals and non-binary pals. Peace out! You immediately switch to your Vine app, hoping that very soon means right away. It doesn't. So instead you text your friend to let them know you enjoyed the video before going on Tumblr and seeing if anyone has put down some thoughts yet. There is definitely some hype over what it is sure to be an upcoming Dark Prince video, and of course the confirmation of certain character traits. About an hour later, you get an alert. Thomas has posted a new Vine. You tap on the alert and hold your breath. Here it goes. The tutor pulled the young prince and his friend apart. Now that is enough. Apologize and shake hands. Both teens roll their eyes and rumble sorry, scowling at each other. Shake hands, the teacher repeats. The teens sigh, but do as they were told. Excellent. As soon as the teacher turned his back on the 2, however, the dark hooded teen tackled the prince after Seth Royal stuck his tongue out at him, both screaming. You are so excited. Nemesis got played by a female presenting actor, and Prince by your friend. They must be so excited, and you can just imagine how excited the community will be with this. One could see this as Thomas enjoying just picking the student with the best scowl regardless of gender, but there would definitely be plenty trans Marcus works from now on. And this confirmation that they knew each other and got in fights as teenagers was definitely fan content fuel. It will be glorious and you can't wait.